Item: SCP-592. Object Class: Euclid. Special Containment Procedures: SCP-592 should be contained in Research Cell 1611-E at all times, locked in a steel box, in the middle of a frosted glass containment cubicle. Also in the cubicle are a table, two computers, a standard-sized computer scanner, an internal network connection port, and two pairs of visual distortion goggles, which must be worn upon entering the cubicle, so as to make SCP-592 illegible. The first computer serves as an analysis machine, the second as a custom firewall. All devices have been modified with specialized software and hardware. See testing protocol for details. And the network port has been secured such that no device other than the firewall may use it. It is strictly necessary that the computers and scanner are turned off and unplugged after experimenting, and that they are only powered for the duration of the experiment. The front and back covers of SCP-592 are to be covered in black opaque tape at all times. The cell must be guarded continually to ensure that SCP-592 is not removed. Description: SCP-592 is a large hardcover book which exhibits no external qualities that could be considered unusual, but which can cause delusions, psychosis, changes in physical health and appearance, or even severe wounding when read. It is titled Chronicle of the 20th Century and consists of 450 all-color printed pages. It is reported that it has a printed cover, no dust jacket, with the title of the book, the publisher, and a selection of illustrations from within the text. The original cover is a deep blue. The spine contains the title and publisher name, and is left uncovered by tape. The cover page informs the reader that it was published by Inaccurate Press, 54th Street, Chicago, Illinois 1996. A company named Inaccurate Press has never been registered in the US, nor does the street listed exist. The text is a collection of newspaper clippings and short articles on major events from January 1900 to December 1995. Much of the first half of the text agrees with recorded events, but at some point no later than the 15th of June 1956, a date researchers have termed the point of divergence, POD, the text begins to diverge from known history. These divergences become more common and acute the further away from the POD the text is. Subjects reading from the text before the POD report no ill effect and generally comment that the text is well written and seems very accurately researched. Subjects reading from the book after the POD understand the passage read as accepted truth, and vehemently deny any suggestions that the text is in fact incorrect. The claims subjects make are often disturbing or shocking in nature. It also appears that a subject that has read passages from a certain year can recount events that are detailed in later sections of the book. It has been found that those born before the date which the test passage indicates, and lived in or nearby the location of the event described, may construct personal experiences built around the event and describe them as they would any other vivid memory. The subject will go to great measures to defend the reality of their story, often turning violent if under interrogation. Exposure to SCP-592 may alter physical characteristics of the subject to conform with the events of the passage being read. This can vary from small changes in appearance or clothing to the infliction of severe wounds. For example, in one instance a subject, D94920, produced a scar during an interview, stating that he picked it up during the data expunged. His widow, when presented with the scar, located on his, was surprised, stating she had not noticed the scar before. It has been found that once the subject discovers that the world is inconsistent with their acquired memories, they begin to feel that the present reality is an illusion, a dream, or a deceit, often stating malevolent or government forces are at work in maintaining the illusion. Subjects who reach this stage enter into a profound and chronic psychosis. All attempts to treat this delusion have failed. See Wiki for full report. SCP-592 was recovered during a narcotics raid in August 2006 on the property of Mr. Redacted, the leader of a controversial religious group called the Church of the True History. Despite being in possession of SCP-592, Mr. Redacted is believed to have started the church for financial gain rather than revelation. The owner may have only survived exposure from SCP-592 for almost 2 years because of his rampant drug use, which included methamphetamine, cocaine, and a host of opioids. The psychedelics, especially DMT, are known to have been used and probably interacted with the effects of SCP-592 more than the others. Redacted believed that his delusions came from his drug use, but noted that a year after exposure to SCP-592, he found himself turning to drugs more often to hide away from the truth. In custody and deprived of his usual chemical relief, the suspect became comatose and died a week later. The circumstances of the acquisition has led to proposals to test SCP-592 in combination with psychedelic drugs. See proposal.